This brings us to our keynote speaker, and it's my honor to introduce Paul Sohl. He is the CEO of the Florida High-Tech Corridor, a 23-county initiative anchored by the University of Central Florida, the University of South Florida, and the University of Florida. The three universities coming together. So Paul drives collaboration among these university partners in industry, academia, and in economic development to really advance what the name implies, the high-tech innovation across Central Florida region. Paul joined the Corridor in 2020 after more than 30 years serving the Navy. His final command led 500 personnel at the Operations Test and Evaluation Force, directing testing of Navy warfighting systems. He previously commanded major aviation and test organizations, including the Naval Aviation Fleet Readiness Center Enterprise and the Naval Air Warfare Center Weapons Division. Yes, he was a Navy test pilot. But wait, there's more. Paul served overseas during Operation Desert Shield and Operation Enduring Freedom. He holds a bachelor's in aeronautical engineering from MIT and a master's in aeronautical and astronautical engineering from Stanford. Paul is I've gotten to know him over the last 24 hours. He is the quintessential right stuff that Tom Wolfe wrote about. He is amazing. He has really stepped into really risky zones. He's made tough decisions. He's really understands steadiness under pressure, bold leadership, strategic clarity. I could go on and on about my new friend. He is amazing. And he's the perfect speaker for us because he's going to come and share what their mega region has been doing and what they're up to and the track that they have taken. So please join me in extending a very warm Virginia welcome to Paul Sohl.
It's amazing what AI will do for a bio. So that's kind of how that was created. Is this working, gang? Okay, good. Thank you for inviting me. A little bit of background. Got a call from Greg a few months ago, and I didn't know who he was. Finally, we connected, and on the first Zoom call, one of the lines they said was, "Paul, we're your biggest fans." And I told the staff the next day, we have a fan club in Virginia on what we're doing here in Florida. And honestly, sometimes we don't know what we're doing here in Florida. I want to create some curiosity today very quickly, and then I want to get to your questions. You've asked some great questions today, and so I want to elicit those questions because we don't have it all figured out. This was Greg's title, the Florida Formula. I'm not sure if we have one. We're kind of making it up as we go along. We turn 30 next year. So my point to you, since you turned 10 now, it takes a little bit of time on this kind of stuff. So let me kind of step you through it. So truly, the two things when I took over 5 years ago, we were going to honor our legacy and the giants that created this thing, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to challenge status quo every day because things are happening too fast not to constantly question what the heck are we doing. It's a partnership, those three universities, that's my triad. Those are my co-chairs. So those presidents, those three presidents are my co-chairs of my board. And what I like to tell everybody is they're a little busy running universities, which gives us a chance to play in kind of a super cool sandbox. And that's how I think of the high-tech corridor. Where did it start? And truly started in '96. I mean, things were kind of falling apart in Florida. Tried to pick itself back up, 2008. Everybody's hit with a recession. And then we were sort of picking ourselves back up again. And then the shuttle closed down. And if you're old enough to remember in Seattle, the billboard that said, "Would the last person in Seattle please turn out the lights?" They really talked about doing that in Brevard County when the shuttle program quit because there was nothing left. So you had all this stuff that kind of happened to us. And at the same time, the corridor at that point was about 15 years old. it really started to focus in on, okay, what can we do about this? And I'll talk you through some of the next steps. And I want to have you hold one thing in your head. At this same time, Osceola County, a small county in the corridor just south of Orlando, started thinking about semiconductors. Okay, and things we could have shut down. Honestly, there were a lot of people in Florida said, "Well, we'll be fine. We have no tax and we have great beaches. What's the problem?" And these visionaries really said, "No, that can't work. We know we will lose high-tech businesses." Cerent was that business in '96 that was going to leave because we weren't able to sort of keep them in the region. So the partnership with the 3 universities were working really well. That middle bullet about favorable business environment, I equate that to one thing. The people in Florida are tremendously curious about each other and what they do. And I mean that. Now, I sense that same thing in here. Both Brians are here, with this whole idea of like they're here and they're talking and they're curious about what goes on. That's really, really important. And that business environment, especially for startups that are curious about, hey, what if I took this thing and combined it with that thing and then help those young kids who are getting PCs, who can do stuff? That's some pretty amazing stuff that I think is inherent in Florida. The other thing that's inherent in Florida is nobody is from Florida. Everybody comes, and so nobody is, well, you're not from around here. Everybody's a visitor. So we're naturally curious about what happens. And then that strategic infrastructure investment, the incubators that started talking to one another. Brightline, high-speed rail, Orlando to Miami, hugely important. That's been around for a little while, but it finally came to Orlando. I meet people from Miami on a daily basis who come up to Orlando for lunch, and then they'll go back. And you get an amazing amount of work done. So there's that. You've talked about it this morning and the rest of the day about infrastructure. There's some real investments that were going on here for sure. Okay, so this is 5 years ago, the corridor. I equate it to kind of a ship at the pier side. We had things going, we had systems that were operating, but we weren't doing what a ship is supposed to do. A ship is supposed to be out there. It's supposed to go somewhere. I didn't know at first where we should go, but I knew we weren't going to stay tied to the pier for very long, and we had to get moving. Matching Grants was the program that has been there for 30 years. And I'll just highlight a few things because I want you to ask questions, and there are other organizations that do this. So it's a program where we have dollars. We can actually match research dollars from small and medium-sized companies that want to come to a university and say, I got this technology that I want to apply. We can put dollar for dollar on top of them and get that going. Sendfluence is an industry cluster initiative that started with Mayor Jerry Demings, Orange County, who right at the beginning of COVID said, when unemployment went up to 37% because all the tourists stopped coming. And he said, I have got to figure out how to diversify and highlight what gets diverse, what is already there in our industries. So we started that program. The FAST program, it's an SBA program that I think Virginia probably participates in, Federal and State Technology Partnership Program, SBIR work. That's great. Florida had never applied for it. Florida didn't participate in it. So we called them up, we called SBA and said, what do you need? I need a letter signed by the governor. Okay, how do you get that done? And you find somebody to go get a letter, the governor signs it, and then all of a sudden we become the agent for that. And that SBIR work, that non-dilutive capital for small and medium-sized companies, hugely important as a way to sort of accelerate innovation. There's Matching Grants, there's the data. This is the program that's been around for a long time, operates at UCF and USF. We are trying to expand it to the rest of the universities. My hat's off to the community colleges. The comments that were said earlier today. Within the corridor, we have 3 big universities of the 12, and then we have 14 of the great 28 state colleges in Florida. State colleges used to be community colleges. That's a huge player in this whole thing and what Matching Grants do to energize economic development in a transformative way. Here's the cluster program. We started out with 4 clusters. It was an interesting discussion with the mayor because we said, we can build a team that'll probably do 1 cluster. Just give us 1. And he said, no, 4. And I said, how about 2? And he goes, no, 4. I said, okay, you're paying the bill. We'll build the team for you. So the 4 clusters that he was and these are industries that are already there. It's building the framework around them, a lot like Europe does with its clusters. And it was energy and environment, gaming, entertainment, and really esports, immersive technology, learning sciences, human performance, and life sciences. The semiconductor one, and this was part of the strategy as we began to look, we started out, for the first 25 years, our only money came from the state through the universities. That was it. And that seemed kind of risky, that you would have one revenue stream coming in that could be turned off by your university president. That doesn't seem real smart. So we started looking at other ways to be able to get revenue into us, and then we feed that back. Out. Quick story about. Have you heard about the happened 2 years ago? NSF's Regional Innovation Engines Grant Program. Okay, very quickly, read the book Jumpstarting America. Read the book Jumpstarting America. That talks about how the theory of we have a great economic engine in Silicon Valley, one in Seattle, one in Boston, Route 128. We need to put these in other places. And the private sector won't have the capital to do it. So NSF put out a call and said, we want to finally give $160 million to 10 different regions to build an economic engine around a particular technology. Because of the brain power of Osceola County back 10 years prior, starting to build the infrastructure for semiconductors, we as a partnership won one of those grants. That is now the Florida Semiconductor Engine. And that is, and you talked earlier today about onshoring, that's about advanced packaging in semiconductors. So this isn't an Intel chip plant. This is the next set of things you're going to do with semiconductors to get to 6G and everything else you talked about in technology. That all has to happen, and that's where Florida wants to play a big lead in that. There's the FAST program. Network, and this is for the entire state. That's what we do, and we really engage. Our numbers were horrible. Florida had the 3rd highest number of high-tech small businesses that could take advantage of SBIRs, and we were the bottom 3rd of actually successfully getting them. And so what we did was he said, well, that's the program that we're going to help to be able to talk to these companies. How do you apply for SBIRs? How does that work? How does that engage? How does that get them the capital? And that's really taken off, which has been great. We invest in, this is one of our young inventors. Have you heard about Invention Convention? National program. One of the themes this morning that I heard, the K through 12 piece. That is your workforce. They are creative. There are programs, there are after-school programs that you have on invention and those kind of things. Get them connected with Invention Convention nationwide. Florida has a hub now for these. And then volunteer to be a judge in June up in Dearborn, Michigan when they do the contest. Because you get to meet young ladies like that who have an invention that says, I can solve the world's problem like this. And it goes K through 12. Amazing program. Our Florida Inventors Hall of Fame does that program. GrowFL is a second stage program. We work with them. We help invest in them. And then the Cade Prize, which is now national. Dr. Cade, University of Florida, invented Gatorade. For those that didn't know, his daughter has created a museum that is now part of the Cade Prize for inventivity, really for invention. So part of what the corridor does is invest in others. You've already figured out you can't do this on your own. It won't work. You have to partner. And so how do you go through that partnering? I would ask you, if you do one thing, watch the video from last year's keynote address here. Adrienne Cole, watch that. She has so many, that was the one on radical collaboration. So many important points. If the person didn't show up for their weekly meeting or monthly meeting, I'd go have a cup of coffee with them and say, hey, what gives? Driving that collaboration. This is the semiconductor engine that really is back to the future, because they had made a stab at semiconductors in the late 90s and then it didn't work. And now Neo City is the hub for the semiconductor engine. We hope to get the next round of funding, not sure on that one. The thing I would take away from semiconductors, and this goes to the workforce piece, one of the superpowers of Florida that I've seen is its connection between K through 12, the community colleges, and the universities. There is in Osceola County, took itself from 64th out of 67 counties for those high school graduates that would continue on for at least a 2-year degree, took it from 64th to 4th. How did they do it? They fund every high school graduate who wants to get 2 years of college at one of the local colleges and pays it for them for free. So they're all going. And what are they doing? They're doing stuff like with Valencia College, President Kathleen Plinsky has a clean room. Part of their curriculum, they go in and take a 20-week course on how to be a semiconductor clean room operator. It is amazing. And and the reason that happened, and this goes back to John's point about vision and reason, is a movie called The Florida Project. And basically what you have in Osceola County, which is right next to Disney, super cool for a high school graduate who wants to earn $18 an hour and go work for Disney after high school, go do it. Guess what you'll be doing in 20 years? You'll be working for $18 an hour at Disney. That doesn't cut it. And so they said, we have got to do something different and take advantage of what we see here. It is hard work. What you do is hard work. There are no easy answers on this stuff. But you have creative people that are out there that want to do things, and it's pretty exciting. Connect with us. I love my table over here with Sarah Jane and Dr. B and Paul and the gang. We're the funny table. It was great just to sit down and talk and learn. What questions do you have for me? What can I answer? I will tell you what I know and don't know. You're stuck with me on your journey. I can't wait. I saw that. I got sent that. Adair sent me that 3-foot chart. I'm going, man, this is cool. I don't understand it, but it's really cool. This is really cool. This is really cool. What can I answer for you, or address, or throw out there?
Thanks. This isn't a question, but we brought Invention Convention to Virginia. We have it in Norfolk. Virginia Tech is actually the state affiliate. It is a truly impactful program. And I just want to put a plug. If anybody wants more information, contact me. I'm Linda Peck, formerly of the Norfolk Innovation Corridor and Greater Norfolk. It is a truly impactful program. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm a Hokie dad. Our middle daughter went to Virginia Tech. She's an architect now down in Orlando. So thank you for that. It is great. Literally, what they do is life-altering for these kids, for sure. What else? What are the thoughts?
Yes, sure. Milan Chuan with the Virginia Asian Chamber of Commerce.
Hi. Are you going to ask me a quantum question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
I'm not
you.
going to know.
Yeah, welcome to Virginia,
Thank you.
by the way. So the Commonwealth of Virginia has a study called How Virginia Compares.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So hearing your story of success is very much like Virginia. Very competitive, business friendly. But when I go to, different states, I noticed that Ohio and Florida are very outstanding in terms of somehow maybe the branding is strong. And do you think it's because of the tax policy? Because you have similar business climate, diversity in industry, very much like Virginia, but somehow maybe your marketing is maybe you have more money for marketing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I'm only going to give you my perspective on that. certainly no income tax is attractive. Although from an economic development point of view, and we kind of step in that world every so often, the state doesn't do any incentives. So as they try, and we're not in the business of attracting businesses to Florida, although we do set the conditions for companies like European companies to do soft landings because they want to know, hey, where to get connected. I don't think it's a marketing thing either. I think really what it is this kind of stuff. I really do believe that. My only strategy going into this job 5 years ago was I'll just go to where the energy is. If somebody's doing something cool and I think it sort of aligns with what we're doing, I want to go learn what they're doing. That's really important. You already know you can't execute that plan without partners, even outside of RVA 757 connects. You have to look beyond that. But you got this great start on that. So I don't think it's a I think here's the answer. And I see it in you. Do not try to be anyone else. Do not try to be Silicon Valley. Don't try to be Florida. Be you. That's where I think fundamentally the magic lies in be you. What is it? And yes, it's hard. It's hard to pick one. And Florida's kind of that way. We have from the Space Coast, we just did our 94th launch of the year. That's 2 a week that are going up. We do all sorts of fintech in Tampa. We do medical tech. We're schizophrenic in some of these things. What I would say that leads to, though, is, and you talk about, and you highlighted collaboration. I would add a phrase to that. You really want boundary-spanning collaboration. Don't collaborate in your tribe. Look over somewhere else and go, what does that mean? What could that? Imagine if those sorts of things. Then I think that really begins to take off. But John's got a lot of data for sure on economics, no doubt. What else? What other? And I know I'll get the hook at some point. Yes, sir. Yeah, so I speak not on behalf of Osceola County. It was an Osceola County program called Osceola Prosper. They first did it, I think, 3 or 4 years ago with some of the COVID dollars that they said we want to see what happens if we offer our graduating seniors 2 years of college. And they found out really quickly that they went from, no kidding, 60th to 64th to 4th. And they have, I know for a fact, they have approved that now out of their normal operating budget since those dollars ran out. And being a partner in the semiconductor engine and being part of Osceola County and what they're doing, you're not going to turn that off. They've already seen what it does. And to be able to, because then there's just these great connections between like Valencia College and UCF, the 2+2 program, where if you get through here, then you can go over here. Florida's got these, it is so ungodly cheap to go to, the tuition's like nothing to be able to do that. And they're now just trying to generate, we've got Florida Poly there, a new president, he wants to create a 3-year engineering degree. And he thinks he can do it because he said, why do we, these engineers, they go to a company and they learn some more stuff with them. We don't need to do that. So it was literally political will saying, okay, we had some money, let's try it. Again, sort of, let's try. Let's see what happens. We're going to fail sometimes. That program didn't fail. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so really great question. Part of our role as the corridor is to be Switzerland to all the counties. We love them all. And we also show them that by working together on certain things, it can happen. I think what would drive that would be the higher ed system, like the community college, would say, look at the success. These community colleges have these super fast programs, and they are super responsive to industry. Hey, we need a robotics class. Okay. They showed off, just a couple of years ago, Valencia showed off their robotics curriculum, the 17-week curriculum, to a bunch of companies from the Space Coast who really didn't go to Valencia. And the business guys are all handing out their cards to these students. And the vice president in charge of this whole thing, she came up to me, she said, Paul, the sad thing is they're wasting their time because these students are already spoken for. They already have jobs. They have to get in line with being able to do that. And to see a youngster who maybe tried college for a year, and it's not good for me, but I love this robotics thing or this, clean room. I get to put on the bunny suit, do stuff. There's some of them that just love that stuff. Great question. Yes, sir. One here, John, and then over to you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Fellow Hokie dad.
Awesome.
You seem pretty relaxed and comfortable and a lot of great stuff going on, but I'm sure there's some challenges that you're dealing with. And what keeps you up at night?
Yeah. Let's see. My 3 kids. They're all wonderful. Yeah, that's interesting. I know this is going to be on YouTube, and that's fine. One of the things that, and the presidents know this. We are funded. We have grant funding coming in for sure. What I don't want to be is absorbed by the universities. That would not be good. And I have felt sometimes, you get that comment, hey, we're not sure what the corridors really do. We think we need to govern you a little more. And, okay. And you kind of let that pass. And what we really try to do is, one of the great things about the Florida university system, there's this board of governors, and man, they got metrics like you read about that universities have to do graduation rates and everything else. And so we tie right into those metrics. We go, this is what we do here, this is what we do here, this is what we do here. So that's probably the big thing. And then maybe the other thing is I want to make sure that somebody tells me when it's time for me to leave. I don't want to. The first CEO was there for 23 years. That's too long. So we're building. We got a team of 11. They're just wonderful, and tons of great leadership. And I want to make sure I get that signal. Somebody hits me over the head with a bat. Paul, time to go. Time to go do something else. Come work up here or something. My last job in the Navy was just down I-64 at Optiv 4. So I know this. It's great to see the expansion. John, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm ask you to repeat maybe a little bit of the funding flow.
Yeah.
And Tom's question kind of set this up, but it sounds like you have 2 major sources of funding. One is your own grant making, applying for federal grants and going after that. And then you've got the flow of funds from these 3 universities.
Right.
And every year, is it about the same amount of money from each university? And then my real question is, how do you get these 3 separate flows that are coming from the state government through the universities, 3 streams, and they end up in your shop?
Right.
How do you get them to all agree that we're going to fund one thing, or do you end up having 3 separate projects for the flow? How do you make that culture work?
Yeah. So great question. Let me caveat that. Originally, we started out with a line item in the state budget, and that lasted for about 2 years. And then they said, we're going to put it in the omnibus package for the universities that we send to the universities. But it only went to USF and UCF, that money. Because they looked at UF as this billion-dollar research university and said, you can just be a co-chair, but we don't need to send you money. So the money truly flows through USF and UCF. Day to day, I rely on the vice presidents for research and innovation. That's my day-to-day conversations because the money is really in the research and innovation world. And then through matching grants, we have committees that vote on projects and that sort of thing. We also have flexibility with that money because it honestly, they are university dollars. But for example, USF, great. They had some professors that felt left out. I'm a sucker for anybody who feels left out. I want the whole table. I want everybody there. And we said, well, what can we do? So we started a seed fund for small projects, just one-time deal, $25,000 here, go do something with that. But it's got to, one of the key things on that is it's got to involve students, because that's that future workforce piece. And then so we work it with the university. We haven't been successful at sort of driving the universities together on things. That's harder. What we try to do is use common things like the semiconductor engine. Now, all three universities are involved in that semiconductor engine. You got materials guys and gals up at UF, you've got digital twin folks at UCF, and you've got USF in commercialization that's doing a bunch of stuff. So it's a bit of a dance. Right. Is how we kind of.
So do you guys have more authority, or when your staff is putting together the federal grants not related to the universities,
Yeah.
can y'all dream up what's the project and go for it?
Yeah.
And does that power of the three universities give you an added advantage in the application?
Yeah. So again, a great question. We use it to our advantage when appropriate. So we will bring in partners if we want to go after. Like we went after a separate engine for coastal resilience, and I heard coastal resilience earlier today about. Yeah, no kidding. So we went after that as the corridor, and then we supported the semiconductor one. Didn't win on the coastal resilience, won on the semiconductor one, but we had partnered with Miami for the coastal resilience one, and then they wound up winning an EDA Tech Hub grant, which is like score. They're not in the corridor, but I don't care. That's great. So now their whole coastal resilience thing is really churning, because that's one of the things we tell sort of counties and others. It's like, don't worry, one day you'll come to us, even though you may not think you will, because you'll want to look outside your own fence line and see what's out there, because it really is pretty magical. What else? What other questions?
John, I don't think there's any questions left.
Awesome. Hey, let me, just a couple of highlights, John. I took some notes. The regional emphasis you guys talked about. Dr. De Silva, you talk about non-traditional players, absolutely. Internships, apprenticeships, community colleges, AI literacy, these are things that you mentioned that just resonate with me. The I-64 corridor. I mean, we start I-4 corridor. That's it. That's kind of how it. That's kind of, now all you need is a Brightline train. Boy, those things are awesome to get there. Never forget the tech side of, like, technicians. USF has this great Center for Advanced Medical Learning Systems, CAMLS, totally simulated hospital, where they bring in MD students and they can operate, and the bodies are doing all kinds of things, and they've got simulators, they can make them code and do all sorts of stuff. And the hardest things they have to get are the simulator techs to run the simulators. So don't ever think it's like on the super leading edge. You need those techs. And then the other thing is, and you all have the power of numbers and the data. There's a thing called the Florida 2030 plan that we kind of mirror and monitor. They've been going after, we've been 16th on the list of economies, GDP. We were right behind Spain, and we're kind of going at it. We just passed them. We just passed Spain. We're now 15 at 1.7 trillion. And the other thing is, as you watch rockets, thank you, John, for the nice introduction, but I always wanted to be an astronaut and failed at that. Never got there, but what makes, for the educators, what makes me proudest is one of my students at test pilot school when I came back is a young man by the name of Reed Wiseman. If that name doesn't ring a bell, it will when Artemis takes off next year, because he commands Artemis with Vic Glover, two Navy guys. and goes around the moon and takes another just super awesome picture. That if you remember that, the Earthrise picture from Apollo days, we're going to get that again. And then we're landing on the moon, and we're going to live on the moon, and then we're going to get to Mars. And all I tell everybody is just hurry the fuck up, because I want to see it. I want to see it happen. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for coming up here and sharing your wisdom. We're going to now turn our attention to